If I showed you this math problem and asked you to solve it for me, then you'd probably be able to get me an answer, right? Even if there was a niner in there.
2, 4, niner.
And you needed to use your fingers and toes, I'm pretty sure you could figure it out. The method to solve a problem like this is of course called the order of operations, which most of us learned in school when we were just little kids. Now, if I showed you all of these investment accounts and asked you to tell me which order to invest in for financial independence, then could you tell me? In this video, I'm going to go through what I call the order of investing operations for financial independence to help you optimize where your next dollar should go. I see way too many people messing this up, and it's costing them tens of thousands to even hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost money. And the worst part is that they're not even going to realize it until it's too late to fix the problem. If you're someone who is or wants to start investing in cryptocurrency, then I'll give you my thoughts about where that falls into within this whole process as well. If you don't have access to any of these accounts, then skip it and move on to the next one. The first place to start contributing would be in your 401k up to your employer match. No matter how much they give you, take it because they are offering you literally free money. A lot of people don't realize that this is a part of your compensation, just like your salary, healthcare, sick days, and vacation days. It'll usually be offered to you in two different ways, either partial matching or dollar for dollar matching. For partial matching, it'll say something like 50% match up to the first 6%, which means that they'll match half of what you contribute up to 6% of your salary. So as long as your income grows, the amount that they match will of course increase as well. So if you make $100,000 per year, then any amount you contribute up to 6% or $6,000, they'll match half of that, so up to 3% or $3,000. What seems like a small amount on the surface can turn into a huge lump sum of money. That yearly $3,000 match invested every year for 30 years could turn into over $280,000. Or, for the people who kind of think more like me, that is over 35,000 Chipotle burritos. Who doesn't want more Chipotle burritos? Don't contribute more into your 401k yet. We'll come back to the 401k in just a minute. My dog Molly would greatly appreciate a thumbs up on this video. To up the ante a little bit, I'll give her as many kisses as this video gets likes. Challenge accepted. I know this isn't technically an investment account, but it has a decent enough return on investment to mention. That would be to pay off any bad debt that has an interest rate of 4 to 5% or higher. For any rates less than that, just pay the minimum payment and move on with your life. You can use the famous Dave Ramsey promoted debt snowball method where you pay off the lowest debt first, or you can use the debt avalanche method where you pay the debt with the highest interest rate first. I'm a big fan of investing at least something while you're paying off non-credit card debt, so if you want to check that box with any employer match, then that works. The next two steps are interchangeable. I'm mentioning this now because some people might rage out in the comments telling me how one of these should be maxed out before the other. I'm putting them in a specific order based on the math and nothing more. After I go through them both, I'll let you know why you might want to put money into one before the other so that you can understand the actual thought process. After the debt's handled, you'll want to move into maxing out your health savings account. Now in 2022, for singles, it's $3,650, and for families, it's $7,300 for the year. This is purely based on the fact that this account offers you a triple tax savings when money is invested within the account. I have a whole video series where I break this down in more detail that I'll link up at the end of this video and down in the description as well. What I mean by triple tax savings is that money goes into the account with pre-tax dollars, it grows tax-free, and it can be withdrawn for medical expenses tax-free as well. One caveat is that if you use this money for non-medical expenses before the age of 65, then you'll pay a penalty and taxes on the money, so you should really avoid this if possible. The good news is that if you happen to not need any of the HSA money for medical expenses, then at the age of 65, you can use it for non-medical purposes. At that point, it basically turns into a traditional IRA for withdrawal purposes because you'll have to pay taxes on that money, but you will not pay any penalties. If you want to contribute to an HSA, then you'll have to be enrolled in a high deductible health plan, so keep that in mind. They're not for everyone, so make that decision based on your specific situation. Maxing just this account out for 30 years could turn into a $344,000 account. In case you're not keeping track of what the future value of this portfolio will be, we're looking at $283,000 for the 401k match and $344,000 for the HSA, which brings us to a total of $627,000. After you've maxed out your HSA, the next account to put money into is a Roth IRA. Contribute to a Roth IRA if you're within the income limit, and contribute to a traditional IRA if you're over the income limit. After that, decide if it makes sense to do a backdoor Roth from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. It usually makes sense to try to get money into a Roth IRA if possible so that the money can grow tax-free. Another good thing about a Roth IRA is that you can withdraw contributions at any point in time without paying early withdrawal penalties. As long as you don't touch any of the investment gains, you're fine. A Roth IRA is something that a lot of people overlook because unlike a 401k, it's self-directed, so you have to open and fund the account on your own. There's just enough friction in the process, which is probably why we only see about 30% of taxpayers that have an IRA. One of the main reasons that I say to max this out before putting any additional money into something like a 401k is because you have more control over a Roth IRA. With a 401k, you're forced to use the provider that your employer chooses, and there's usually very limited investment options for you to choose from. With a Roth IRA, you can choose the brokerage like Vanguard, Fidelity, or my favorite of course, M1 Finance, and you have thousands of investment options as opposed to the 20 to 40 that your 401k offers you. Maxing out a Roth IRA at $6,000 per year for 30 years would grow this account to roughly $566,000. Adding that to our $627,000 total from the 401k match and HSA brings us up to investments totaling around $1.2 million. If you can master those first 3 steps, then you're basically a millionaire in 30 years. But that's not enough because we want more, so we need to keep going. But first, we should quickly cover the HSA versus Roth IRA debate before some of you start rage quitting out of this video. In a perfect world, you're able to max out both, so choosing one or the other is a non-issue. Here's a little chart to give you a quick visual of the differences. Use an HSA if you want the most optimal tax advantage strategy and you plan to use it for medical expenses. Keep in mind that there's still a benefit for contributing to an HSA even if you use some of it for non-medical expenses at the age of 65. Contribute to a Roth IRA first if you want to take advantage of the tax-free growth and have more flexibility with your money since you're able to withdraw contributions at any point in time. Putting the HSA ahead of the Roth IRA on this list was a tough one for me because I love everything about an IRA, but it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. Another thing about an HSA is that I know we all like to pretend like we're going to skate through this life without any medical issues, especially when we're older, but that's just not realistic. Plus, no one knows how much they're actually going to be spending on medical at the age of 60 plus, but I can probably guarantee you're going to be spending some money. Better to be safe by prioritizing an HSA and ending up with quote-unquote too much money than not prioritizing it and realizing that you could have had a lot more money available to spend if you would have just maxed out that account to begin with. Let's be honest, out of your overall portfolio, a portion of it is automatically going to go towards medical expenses anyways. You just don't know how much yet. At least you'll have a health-specific portfolio that's optimized for that overall expense. Once all of those accounts have been maxed out, it's time to move back into accounts like a 401k, 457, and 403b. These are most likely going to end up being the largest accounts that you own when it's time to withdraw money to live off of because you're able to contribute so much more money. With a 401k, the max amount that you can contribute in 2022 is $20,500. Now, it usually jumps by about $500 every year or every other year. 2022 was the first time that it jumped by $1,000 within a 1-year period since about 2005-2006. Deciding whether to invest in a traditional 401k or Roth 401k is going to be specific to your situation. If you want to reduce your taxable income today, then look into contributing to a traditional 401k. For the tax-free growth, a Roth 401k would be ideal. Before I quit my job in corporate America a few months ago to take a mini retirement, I was personally putting 100% of my money into a traditional 401k. One thing to always remember is that with a traditional 401k, you'll eventually be forced to withdraw money through required minimum distributions, so you won't be able to push off paying those taxes forever. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something to keep in mind. Choosing a Roth or traditional here is going to have a lot to do with what tax rates will be when you start withdrawing versus what they are today. But I have a little secret to tell you about that. Come closer, come closer. That's better. No one actually knows what the rates will be in 4 years, let alone 20 to 30 years when you start withdrawing this money. Because of that, don't let this small decision prevent you from doing something. Split it 50-50 between both 401ks until you have a better idea of what you want to do going forward. I want to point out real quick that I am completely aware of how difficult it is to be able to max out a 401k. We're talking about roughly $1,700 per month on top of maxing out all of the other accounts that we've talked about so far, which is a lot of freaking money. I wasn't able to do something like that for a few years, but I eventually got there, so don't get discouraged if you are not in this position right now. Maxing out a 401k and investing that money for 30 years would give you an account worth a little over $1.9 million. Between our 401k match, HSA, Roth IRA, and 401k, this would bring our total amount invested to an insane $3.1 million. If there's money left that needs a home, then this is where you'd want to start putting it into a taxable investment account. So many people are putting money into this account before even touching HSAs, Roth IRAs, and 401ks, which absolutely blows my mind. It's extremely important to maximize your tax advantage retirement accounts before even thinking about messing with a taxable brokerage account, because those accounts are more tax efficient. If you plan to do something like an early retirement, then having access to taxable investment accounts will help you live off of money while you do things like Roth conversions. So trying to get to a point where you're able to invest money within a taxable investment account should be a high priority. Now we need to talk about investing in cryptocurrency along the way. For just the sheer fact that I uttered those words in this video means that there's going to be scammer YouTube accounts spamming the comments down below. They're going to mention contacting them through Instagram, WhatsApp, Telegram, and they might even throw a phone number out there for you to contact them. Please, please, please ignore them and or report those comments, because it's not me and I do not endorse that kind of trash. PSA over. So anyways, back to the investing in crypto talk. If you're maxing out all of those retirement accounts that we've covered so far, then you're putting away roughly $30,000 per year, which is great. Because of this, you could probably feel a little more comfortable putting money into this type of investment. Any sort of cryptocurrency would basically be under the taxable investment account umbrella, because as of right now, you can't put those into an HSA or 401k. I believe there's some companies that allow you to hold them within something like a Roth IRA, but I haven't done enough research into how legit it is, so I don't want to speak too much on that specific topic. I am all for taking some speculative bets with things like individual stocks and crypto, so it's pretty much up to you how much of your leftover money should be allocated towards this sort of thing. I have my personal number, which is no more than 10%, and with that amount, I hold the more well-known ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and two others that I'm not specifically going to call out right now. No, they are not Dogcoin or any of the other shit coins out there. I am not a super crypto bull. I'm more someone who is, we'll say, in the middle, because there's a lot of trash coins out there, and I think that the future of the overall space is very unpredictable. Cautiously optimistic is probably the best way to describe my personal outlook on this type of investment class. I'll go deeper into my thoughts at some point in the future, so I'll leave it at that for now. If you want to learn about some small changes to help speed up your financial independence results, then watch this video to your left next. There's a link to get in the private financial independence community down below in the description as well. Please make sure to Hulk smash that thumbs up button. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.